Thank you. Shadows grow so long before my eyes, and they're moving across the page. Suddenly the day turns into night, far away from the city. But don't hesitate, 'cause your love won't wait. Hey, hey, hey. Ooh, baby, I love you every day. Wanna tell you I love you every day. Wanna be with you night and day. Hey, hey, hey.
A lot of us haven't stepped back on campus since last March. That's when we all went home. Days went by, then weeks, months. Seasons changed, and, well, here we are. Spring's coming the way I see it. There are brighter days ahead, and that's really all you can hope for. But that brings me to one of the really good constants that, even in the past year, still managed to push through despite all odds.
C does all the fun stuff on campus. Like, that's what we were known for. Like, the concerts, the comedy, any events, it was all the fun stuff. It's also just a way to bring the UMD community together. Everyone has a memory at a C event throughout their college experience, and I think that's really the common ground that C does.
College can be stressful. We can kind of help ease some of the stress that comes with being a college student. In the past 50 years, we had like Queen in 77, we had Aretha Franklin, and we had Maya Angelou in 2009. It's all these different people from all walks of life who got to share their stories with us, who got to share their talent and their stories, their music, their comedy. And through that, I think we can open our eyes to the student body of what's out there and all the opportunity that awaits for them, along with, just like I said, entertaining and bringing a little joy.
C is probably one of the most life-changing experiences that I've had. C is just one of those experiences that you are lucky to have.
C makes me cooler. I think about over the years, all the people, the groups that I have been able to see do lectures or comedy or music, and I feel like I'm cooler for that. I think what C means to me, though, more than anything else, is just this incredible entrepreneurial spirit on the part of students. Over the years, I've watched this group go from doing really large-scale programs in Cole Fieldhouse and Ritchie Coliseum, and shows where, when the drinking age was still 18, you really made your money on vending beer at concerts or other events. And I've watched groups work out how do you invite artists or comics or lecturers? How do you take care of them when they're here? How do you put up with all their shenanigans? How do you think about an array of programs that meets the needs of a diverse audience on campus? That critical way in which you're not only responding to who are your stakeholders, but you're also creating community.
C provides one of the most needed resources on a college campus, and that's a respite from everything that college students are facing. We do that in a really creative way, in a way that everybody gets something from the events, whether they're just attending or whether they're planning the event. Students need breaks, and that's important, and that's taking care of one's mental health. And C provides that. And students might not realize that that's what they're getting, but that's what's happening, and it's a way for them to connect and find friends and find shared interests with folks.
I think the work that C does is vital. These are the kinds of things that feed your soul, not your mind, and both of those things need to be fed, and so that's why I think it's important.
It is a joy of my professional career to kind of be part of student entertainment events at the University of Maryland.
really, 23, now 24 student directors that put everything into these events to make them look as good or sometimes even better than professionally run events that I've been to. That's what amazed me the most.
I don't know what I would be doing if I wasn't in C right now in college. Like, probably attending the events that C puts on and being like, wow, they're so cool. But now I get to be on the other side and work behind the scenes, and I'm just really grateful for specifically all the memories that C has given me and all the memories I'm excited to gain in the future.
C was the very first organization that I laid my eyes on even before coming onto campus. I remember leading up to the application process, I pulled an all-nighter. I had talked to directors prior to even applying to talk about, their experiences, and each conversation that I had sold me even more on what I already thought I wanted. And I was right, but obviously, my expectations were exceeded. C essentially became my life. There was a running joke within my friend group and the people that knew me around campus saying that if I wasn't in my dorm or in classes, I was in the C office.
The thing that drew me in was like the celebrities and all these events, and I don't know, there's all kind of this flashy stuff that I saw from the outside.
I came across C, I found their website, and I started scrolling through, and I saw Art Attack, and I saw how it's this big production, and I got so excited because it felt so much larger than a college organization. And, I like to think that I'm an ambitious person, and I kind of like things that are a little larger than life.
C is larger than life, I think, when you look at how their legacy is shown the school. And I think that the people we bring are larger than life, and I think that reflects very much on C's impact on campus. We did that. C did that.
I was talking to my mom about it. I'm like, this is exactly what I'm going to do. Like, I don't have any plans of going into entertainment, but this kind of production is the kind of thing I want to be a part of.
You're working with 23 different incredible minds, and you're working with talent that, is getting paid big bucks, and you don't realize until they're there, why there is that magnitude and that incredible creative potential.
50 years in the life of an organization, and the first thought I have is like the scope, it's huge. And with an accomplished alumni network all across the country, we knew we were up against the clock in order to, all within the 50-year commemoration period, get as many of those stories as possible while navigating challenges like the pandemic. I like to think of each year's board as like this little family, and right away we got insanely lucky to start bringing in alumni to begin, in that process of, with unconditional love, just sharing their story. And from there, magic is made.
I am Michael Jaworek. For me, when I came up here, I thought it was an opportunity to present the spectrum of the performing arts, and by that, whether it's pop music, jazz, classical music, R&B, poetry, etc., that a major university like the University of Maryland should present that sort of schedule.
We started together in 1974, fall of 1974, and graduated in spring of 78. When we came in, we said, well, we're our own company now. And we kind of looked at each other and we said, well, what do we call it? Because it's not University Program Board anymore. There was no program board at that point. So they said, just give it a name and we'll call it. And, we kind of sat around one day and we came up with Student Entertainment Enterprises, which became SEE, which is the forerunner of what you have today, which is student entertainment and events. It's managed to hang on for 50 years, for nearly 50 years.
I was the marketing director in 1983 and 1984. Opportunity. That's the real thing, real world, experiences.
And certainly the students should be involved in it because it can help them get some erstwhile real-life experience as to arts administration.
I got good grades in college, but I was always afraid that after college, I'd be interviewing and they'd be like, hey, ODK's nice and your grades are nice, but what have you done, kid? I was at sea for 2 years. I could tell them what I'd done.
Starting in 1971, I can only tell you going back, because I had been out here as a spectator. There were concerts out here. Springsteen was out here opening for Chuck Berry at Cole Fieldhouse. I think that was 73.
We had Elvis Presley.
Elvis was at Cole Fieldhouse, and that was while we were here. It was quite unique.
And Cole Fieldhouse, 1,500 people. Here's the one thing I'm most proud of.
Queen's a good story, and this was the original Queen, and we loved the guys. They came in, and of course, Cole Fieldhouse is a sports arena. And like most sports arenas, you can only do so much to dress up the dressing rooms because they're locker rooms. So Freddie Mercury, the band guy, Freddie Mercury looks around and says, "I'm not going on." And they're like, "What do you mean you're not going on?" He says, "I need a comfy chair." A comfy chair? Yes, there are no comfy chairs. I need a comfy chair or I'm not going on. Well, that's like, no, what do you do? A professional promoter might have reamed them out or whatever, but here we are, and so Fred and Joe, they're like, we got a couch back at our place, at our apartment. So they took their truck, they went back, they got the love seat from their apartment, brought it in to the dressing room, so Freddie Mercury could sit down in it for 4 or 5 seconds.
Yeah, that's about it.
And go, that's great, a comfy chair, and that was it.
In the late 70s, new wave music was arriving. We got a lot of those artists at that time, and by presenting those acts, which were harder for the geniuses in the agents in New York and LA to place, we were able to expand from there to some of the more larger pop attractions or get on the map. For example, we got Ozzy Osbourne because we had been doing some smaller acts with his agency, and when he did the proverbial, the notorious bat-biting business, he became persona non grata, and none of the conventional professional promoters would touch him. And the agent called me and said, would you do it? And I knew that he was very popular and that, yes, a certain proportion of our students would like Ozzy. And so we did it and sold out in 3 days. What I also remember was he was nervous as a cat, and I thought perhaps he had ingested something, and his stage manager said, oh no, he gets stage fright. I said, seriously? Yeah, we'll be lucky if he doesn't throw up. He didn't throw up, but yes, he was pacing back and forth before he went on stage.
We wanted to be as welcoming as we could be to artists, and so we tried to go over and above what promoters might do. So when Billy Joel was playing Tallest Theater in 1977, and his rider included a seated turkey dinner with someone to carve the turkey we were looking at it like nobody's going to, they're going to give them a platter or something in there. So we got in touch with the student union and the catering department here, and we actually set aside a room, and we actually provided them with a turkey dinner seated with a guy carving the turkey. It was just one of our ways of making it a memorable experience for him. And he remembers it to this day. I mean, it's just kind of one of those jokes that stays with people. I can't believe that, I was out doing colleges and the University of Maryland, provided me with this carved turkey.
There were a couple writers where they asked for things like Perrier. Well, that's easy today. But back then, oh my God.
Deep below the plains of southern France, in a mysterious process begun millions of years ago, nature herself adds life to the icy waters of a single spring, Perrier.
We got the writer for Emerson, Lake and Palmer. What's Perrier? I mean, we weren't stupid.
What
We're
is
like,
that?
It's some kind of water they sell at health food places. Somebody said, okay, so now we're on the phones and we're calling every place in town. Do you have Perrier? Yeah, we have a bottle or two. We need a case. We don't have a case. It was like going around and around. Where does this stuff come from? Well, it's imported from France. Well, how are we gonna, So we did when we called every place we could find, and we finally found a health food store that had them by the case. And we brought a case of Perrier in, and it was like this thing. It was like, it sat down and we're like, ooh, this is Perrier water. What is this stuff?
Well, the first few years was in many respects development, because there really hadn't been, I think, a consideration for an organized program for cultural attractions, and to really coagulate and formalize was a lot better in terms of stage crew, publicity, box office, advertising, and getting students who were interested in that and going to, putting out notices in the Diamondback, as well as getting to some of the professors, say in advertising, do you have some students who are interested in doing this? And that way we started to attract students who had a feel for this. In cultural attractions, Bill Bell and Gene Spivey. I think the students got some real hands-on experience that was beneficial for them later on. Witness how Gene Spivey went on and, in terms of festival administration and in entertainment.
I really wanted to work with the bigger guys. I really wanted to work with them. And it felt at the time that C was kind of an exclusive club, and that it was hard to get into. And, I somehow, I really don't know how I did this, but somehow I got an interview with Michael Jaworek, who was the faculty advisor at the time. And when I walked into C's offices, which were only, I don't know what you have now, but it was only 4 small rooms. One of the doors had a sign on it that said power, corruption, and lies. And so this is my very first impression of C. Now, later, I learned that it's a New Order song. So it wasn't necessarily power, corruption, and lies. But I sat down with Michael and we chatted for a minute. And then he said, well, how hip are you? And what he really meant was like, what do you know about music? And what kind of, and how much do you know? Basically, how much do you know? And I kind of told him what I was listening to and stuff. And it wasn't, it was respectable. It wasn't just the Grateful Dead and Neil Young, which when I was in high school, that's pretty much all I listened to. But anyway, the point is, if you have to tell somebody how hip you are so not hip,
So that was what I was trying to accomplish, was to provide some real hands-on experience for the students who were interested in this avocationally, so that when they would leave here, if they were interested in pursuing the arts in any way, in arts administration, when they were looking for a job, they could say, I presented, and the people here that we presented, they were highly respected.
There was a saying around the offices that said, student entertainment enterprises. Now, first of all, it wasn't events, it was enterprises. And we took that really seriously, like we wanted to make money. And the more money we made, the more we could turn it over and do more concerts. You know, so like it was totally about that. And I think that it was maybe a more Wild West attitude.
We did everything not by the book, we did everything around the book. I mean, and you know, and it was all official and it was sanctioned, but at the same time, we always had a little finagling here or there, and it was always a little, you know, well, we'll get this through because we know it's going to be best for the campus and for the students and whatever. And I think that's really what happened. The University Program Board, because the staff members were no longer there, we just said, we'll just call it SEE and Student Entertainment Enterprise. It'll be our own little thing. I mean, it's not like we had business cards or anything like that or letterhead printed up. But when we sent offers in and everything, it was from SEE. It was from Student Entertainment Enterprises, University of Maryland. And that's how we answered our phones. And none of the administration, none of the faculty or the administrative staff ever complained. So it just kind of happened. You know, it was never official. It just kind of happened.
That concert business was still, you know, in flux. Bill Graham, who was kind of the godfather of concert promotion, was still alive, working in San Francisco. And it was, I think it was a more rough and tumble business. And I feel like we tried to emulate that rough and tumble business.
As a university, you can lose money, but you can also make wise choices to try to find within that realm what are the shows that are really, really good, both aesthetically and financially. And I think we were pretty good at that.
Well, I think 50 years is a long time, and I think it's a testament to the students who are in it and the advisor holding it together. And I think that the kind of skills that students gain are really invaluable. You know, interacting with so many different people and, you know, running a business, because we always felt we were running a business. You know, just the fast-paced environment. I mean, you know, things ran at a pretty good clip. There wasn't a lot of, you know, running anything up the flagpole because there was no flagpole. You know, we had a lot of autonomy. So I think those are kind of cool things. And I also think that an organization like Student Entertainment probably couldn't exist at a smaller university. Because you wouldn't have the student fees, you know, to fund the organization. So I'm just kind of thinking about, you know, what, as we started out, what a great opportunity student entertainment is for people, even if you're not interested in putting on live performances. I think it's just, it was kind of a very intrinsic to what I did later on in life.
Art Attack, at least from my time in C, has been a large-scale concert that is supposed to be at the end of the year. It's supposed to be a celebration of students getting through the terrible semester, as it always is, and to celebrate student accomplishments and to really unite the entirety of campus through a very fun and upbeat event. Started as in 1984
as this really, really cool showcase of student talent, and it was still the same goal of uniting campus after a stressful semester. It was supposed to show off student visual arts, give people an opportunity to do fun activities and like DIYs and special events. Like silent discos, I know is still a thing, or different dances as well as other kind of activities. But it was never really about the talent. And that's what I loved about the beginning of Art Attack. It was about the students.
You know, when I first came, it was still graphic artists doing mousetrap things in the middle of the mall and a very small scale musical event at the end of the day.
We used to have Art Attack right on the mall, like way back. We used to, that's what we were like, oh, it used to be on the mall before it was in the football stadium.
But I got to be there at a time when it wasn't such a small scale event in the middle of McKeldin Mall, when it was Bloodhound Gang and Orgy, and it was ripe with controversy. I got to be a part of those conversations that led to it going into Byrd Stadium. And then because our C advisor had left and her supervisor was gone, I got to be the point person with C, the first show in Byrd Stadium.
My years there, it was always at the football stadium. I loved the event planning side of it, being involved in the setups and the running around and the craziness of it all. That's the most fun part of events. Like, I know it's stressful, but like fun at the same time.
So it wasn't until the 1990s did it become a big concert, and that's when we started getting names like Outkast and we started getting names like T-Pain. So you saw this big move, so there's now a separation between Art Attack Day events, which is the activities, the special events, XYZ, and then Art Attack the concert, which is at night.
And I think about how lucky I was to be a part of, again, the entrepreneurial spirit of C. How are we going to do stage trucks, which we had never done? How are we going to get it out at 3 a.m? And how are we going to work with athletic partners in a way that we never had to before?
I know people still talk about when we brought Kanye West in the early 2000s or Mac Miller even a few years ago. Just the brand of C, like people are very excited about it. They're always like trying to figure out who we're bringing, and there's always a sense of mystery, which I love because I love kind of building up an event and seeing people really enjoy it once it comes to life.
Music festivals are huge now because people love the niche audience, the niche talent, as well as those big names. So that's why the Art Attack Day events and the Art Attack concert were kind of going to be merged into a music festival. So we'd have day events on the mall, which has all these really fun activities like tie-dyeing t-shirts or bounce houses or obstacle courses, petting zoos, and then Art Attack the concert. So in the past, for Art Attack the concert, we've had, at least in my time, we've had A$AP Ferg, we had Jesse Reyes, we had Lil Yachty, Vince Staples.
You'll always remember your first big event. So Art Attack was my first big event. And we had Big Sean and Wale. It was in the stadium. I was nervous because I had never done an event for more than like 2,000 people. I've never done this type of like, high risk event. Wale showed up way late, right? And we were flipping out because he wasn't there. And I didn't know, like my middle agent was like, it's fine, he's coming, but he wasn't there to be on stage. And he got out and, well, a lot of weed came out of that car. By the time Big Sean came on, we were very clear at the noise ordinance. And I am sitting at the sound booth and it's, 9:58 and he's still in the middle of a song. And everyone's loving it. Again, it was one of the best Art Attacks that I've seen just by the crowd enthusiasm and things like that. But it is the clock hits 10 and I'm with the sound guy and I'm like, you need to cut his mic. You need to get him off stage. I'm with the police department. They're like, you need to cut this off or we are going to pull a plug. It's those nuances behind stage that the artist never gets to see. The artist never gets to see that, the advisor's drenched in hot water. The guests in the audience never see that we are yelling at the sound guy to turn off Big Sean's mic because he's over time and things like that. So those are the experiences that, as an advisor, I'll never forget because I mean, I think it's an adrenaline, right? You're charged up on that excitement, and then you know, it takes a while to come down from that, right? After all of these experiences, you know, sometimes I would get home at like 3 a.m. and I wouldn't be able to sleep because I just finished a great show and my students did such a great job, and I did sort of was 2 feet away from a real, you know, celebrity and things like that, and so it does take a while to come down from some of those adrenaline pieces as an advisor.
Over the past 50 years, I feel like C has just really been a pinnacle part of campus. From the concerts that people are going to, the shows, I just think it's really important, and I'm glad that C has done its thing for the last 50 years.
C merged with the Stamp Union Program Council at one point, both programming bodies, both doing a lot of things. So I think it enriched our partnership a good deal because suddenly our fortunes were tied together. And the final thing I would say is I have absolutely adored so many students who've come through C. As people, as student leaders, as folks who have made a difference in their fields, not always following through on their undergraduate major, but instead influenced by what they were doing in C, to do amazing things in the entertainment industry, but also in social justice work, in work that affects the community writ large, and many of those skills were learned in C. And so I feel like they have continued to pay it back to this community, but the community writ large. And so, yeah, I feel like they're part of the family.
C does so many great things that it's hard to kind of put my pin on like one event. Because I would say I'm proud of when we bring Build-A-Bear and we manage the line and give out 400 bears to our students. I think we brought the drag show into kind of our traditional events, and I know what that means for people when we kind of, we bring different audiences into our events and things like that, and I think that's a real impact that we have on campus.
I often think about how C for me is one of the ways in which we have a curriculum that informs who we are collectively, but also makes us think about who we wish we were or who we think we might be individually. Let me give you an example. I remember when Maya Angelou came immediately after the Obama administration first inaugural. And there were people there that I think had sort of created their whole life's mission based on having read about a caged bird singing when they were in high school. And to see her was like seeing a deity. And there were other people who may not have ever really thought much about Maya Angelou, but here was this icon. And I think about how that was one of the last chances this community got to see her. And that was because of C.
They asked me to wheel her down to her tour bus after the lecture, and I'm literally wheeling Maya Angelou out of the Stamp Student Union with her assistant, Phyllis, I believe her name was. And we get to Maya's tour bus, and she's like, "Do you want to come see the tour bus? Oprah just lent this to me for the day." And I was like, "Yeah, I want to go on Oprah's tour bus with Maya Angelou. That sounds pretty rad." So it's me, Maya Angelou, and Phyllis on Oprah's tour bus, and they're giving me a tour. And I tell Maya Angelou, I'm like, "My parents, I mean, we all love you, but my parents have told me about you since I was a little kid." And she was like, "Oh, next time I'm in New York, take Phyllis's number. Next time I'm in New York, I'd love to have you and your parents come." That's a crazy stuff. Like that is just so, you have to be so unbelievably grateful for those are experiences that transcend even just to meet a person of that caliber. So there's also an element of that to it, which is just people love these gigs. They love being around students, and you are the students and you're the guys putting it on. And the access, I think, is just incredibly real. It's not guarded. It's not a gloves on type thing. You know, it's very much a real way to play in a real industry. And I think that like that is probably the piece of it that, you know, is most like interesting to folks in the organization and outside the organization.
I just know that people really enjoy our content and enjoy what we have been putting out, and I can't imagine campus without it. Looking ahead for the next 50 years, I can't even imagine what C is going to be like. I feel like it'll definitely still be around and still be kicking and having all these cool events, just depending on like who's popular at the time and what people on campus are interested in. I think C will definitely still be catering to students and bring the best content and artists that they can.
It's kind of a cultural record. Seeing those snapshots says a lot. You know, that's why I said on the way down here, I'm listening to my little tape there, and I'm getting emotional because it brings me back to a time in life where things were different. There were different people around. There were different things going on. You know, my mother's in bad health, and I'm remembering kind of what happened through my time in college, and it brings me back, and I will see little bits of things in the media or about people or about events, and I remember that there were things going on that we brought into campus that were relevant, either at the time or not so long before. And then it brings it to students. And again, I had these experiences to meet these people who were iconic.
I can make events happen. I can cultivate any event that I wanted to, just because I was a part of something and I reached out to people for help.
The life of an event is always exhilarating because it just starts as something that is infinite. You could spend every second of every day looking at every single artist that you could bring, every type of performance, and you wouldn't get through all of them. And it's taking this limitless possibility and then slowly figuring out what is going to be possible, and then from there, after narrowing that down, what's going to be the best out of that. And that was always my favorite part of an event, is just saying and being kind of overwhelmed by limitless possibility and then saying, well, then what?
You know, it doesn't have to be like go, go, go all the time. It's sitting down and having random little conversations and pitching random ideas to each other and sitting in the office and making jokes with each other and us connecting with each other. And that plays a big role in what we create.
When I stepped into the C office, everything changed. My perspective of what C was completely changed. My perspective of what UMD was doing for the students completely changed. Their legacy is insane. It's incredible. I was in awe at all the posters, all the signatures, all the art that was just displayed on the wall, how from niche things that I really loved, like whether it's Ben Folds or Weezer, you know, that's not too niche, but it's niche now, but it wasn't niche back then. But I was in awe, you know, from Maya Angelou to Kanye to everything. I was like, wow, this really is a legacy, and I'm a part of that.
One thing I want people to take away from this is just how passionate C directors are. I feel like people use the word passionate all the time when they talk about what C does, because it's the best word to kind of encapsulate our board and what we do, because everyone is just so passionate about every single event, and I hope that translates to the people watching, because every single director I know has such a great history with C, and it's something they are able to talk about in any job interview, or they have a great little story like, oh my gosh, like one time in college I was working this event and this happened. It's just crazy what 23 or so students and a few advisors are able to put on. And we've even, you know, gotten comments from actual talent or agents saying like, wow, you guys have a really great team. Like, you guys are very impressive. And I hope people are kind of able to see just how much we love what we do with C.